Babble with Ben.
This podcast is recorded on the lands of the Wurundjeri peoples of the Kulin Nation. I wish to acknowledge them as traditional owners. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be participating today. Welcome to the Babble, Luke Edwards.
Thank you, Ben. Great to be here.
Hey, thanks very much. Now I'm meeting you for the first time today, so it's a real pleasure to have you on the show and learn a bit more about what you do.
Yeah, well, Ben, it's great to be here, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I saw that call out. We were just discussing what post it was. I couldn't quite remember, but or what forum, what platform. But just the invitation to come and have a conversation about music and my interest in it and what I'm hoping to do. Really happy to be here.
That's great. Thank you. I mean, it's a bit nervous for me and it's a bit exciting for me because I am starting to reach out beyond the Box Hill community.
Yeah.
And it's, I'm really glad that you responded and you're happy to share what you do as well.
Absolutely.
I had a quick listen to your SoundCloud earlier today and I'm really digging this sort of folky vibe that you've got. How long have you been in sort of the music sort of game for, who are your influences too?
Well, look, I always just had a natural affinity for music, and when I was my first teaching post back in New South Wales in the Upper Hunter Valley, it was a great place because it attracted a lot of people who were first year outs, as we call them, and amongst that crew were a few musicians, and so we came together and formed a band. The Smedes, as we were called.
The Smedes.
And all covers, but we had such a great time. And my natural instrument, I suppose, is my voice. So, I was a singer and I loved it. But more recently, I've turned my hand to writing my own stuff, and I've always liked to write. There's things that I like to and want to write about. So it's been, I suppose, I've needed to do it.
Yeah.
And I think people recognise that, when you need to do something. And so fortunately, I've been able to put together that combination of, being able to use words, being able to come up with melody, and put it together to, shape something that I want to say. The frustration has been, though, finding somebody to accompany me because while I'm learning the guitar and getting better and better and better, and I'd love nothing more to be able to fluently play so I can just support myself. But the frustration has been having that accompaniment, getting there. And so I'm fortunate to have found a few people that I can play with. So that's sort of a potted history. Started out, always loved music, lead singer in a covers band, but then more recently turning to wanting to do my own stuff. And and it is interesting. So my influences, I've always loved Crowded House.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's every time I hear a Crowded House song, it's something just feels good, feels right. And I think it's the melody more than anything else. And so I've also really enjoyed Neil Finn's solo stuff. And so I think that is a real influence for me more than anything else. And getting a little bit nerding out on the whole Neil Finn stuff, his more recent solo albums have really been, I've noticed anyway, that a lot more electronic, a lot more synthesizer stuff underneath it. And so... I'm trying to sort of play around with that a little bit. That would sort of be the main influence, really. And I mean, look, there's probably countless others but I just can't name them beyond Neil Finn at the moment. So that's sort of the main influence for me.
Neil Finn, Crowded House, fairly solid influences. I mean, here we are 30 years later after. I mean, if you go back further with Split Ends as well, like, gosh, I had the pleasure of seeing them at Blues Fest just over Easter. And they were every bit as good as I'd hoped as well. Like even so long after, what you could consider, their peak cultural sort of pervasion. It's it was a dream come true. Like they're a huge influence for me too.
Yeah, and like I saw them recently-ish. They played at the Music Bowl in the city, and they were so good. And they're really generous, like as performers. I just find they're just good people. When I say they, the band and Neil himself. Not that I know him, but that's just the vibe I get. So, yeah, as I say, solid influences. And I like too that he seemingly just still stays fairly connected, I think, to his sound, but he keeps evolving as well. So, yeah, I enjoy listening to Neil Finn.
How are you going with your guitar? Like, is that a relatively recent sort of?
Not really. I've been sort of beavering away at it for quite a few years. Life gets in the way with kids and family and all that sort of stuff. But I actually was doing some rehearsing last night with a mate of mine who's been good enough to accompany on the guitar, and we were playing a little bit. And he's saying, "You're getting better," and so I think it's just a case of I'm picking it up more often. And I'm finding that my songwriting's probably becoming a little bit better. You get the craft a little bit more, I think, and it just seems to, like anything, over time, if you do it long enough, something happens. And that's interesting because I have been really frustrated, but I just think the last little while it's turned a little bit in my favour, which is good. So guitar, I dabbled in playing piano a little bit and getting lessons, and that was... It's funny, I think I found learning the piano a little bit easier than the guitar, and I can naturally probably find my way around the keyboard. But the guitar it is at the moment because it's just so easy to carry around and play. And as I said, keep working away towards being able to just play as me without needing somebody else. Not to say that it's not good to have other people with you in a band either.
There is a great liberation in being that sort of solo singer-songwriter, and I think especially with a guitar as well, because, you can get up and carry your guitar around. Doesn't matter if it's a bar or a club or even a campfire.
Yeah,
You've got that acoustic guitar there, and it's your one. It's got, that little ding from when you had a six-pack at Old Mates or...
yeah, that's right. It's so portable and easy, and so, and I've been picking up, as I said, a lot, which is good. And I keep hoping for that day where I can just pick it up and just play, which, I'm sure it will come. In the meantime, I need friends.
Yeah. Well, that's good that you are getting the group together as well, because I am 40, and so I came into this institution, as a 37-year-old amongst a bunch of 18-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
And I would find that quite often, I'd be so intimidated by these, hotshots that are coming up.
Yeah.
And I found that a lot of the time, I would be a bit conscious about my singing, and so I'd sort of hide behind the guitar a little bit, like use it as a bit of a shield.
Okay.
But I found that there was something... It's kind of like I've been from the singer-songwriter path to sort of, doing a little bit of like just singing by my, like with a group, and then it's now kind of back to being in a group with the guitar as well. So it's a bit of a journey when you are that singer-songwriter, and you know, sometimes you're accompanying yourself, sometimes you're not.
Yeah, and the other thing I've learnt too is that I think I've had some preconceived ideas about, what I should be as a musician. And what I mean by that is, because I haven't, I've played so much sport and did so many other things when I was growing up, that I didn't give the time to developing playing an instrument. And so I think I sort of feel this sense of, is this right? Is this good? Is this the right chord? Is that the right chord? I don't know. And I think just letting that go a bit, and just, the melody for me is the thing that I know that I naturally bring. And I spend the rest of the time trying to find my way back the chords to match it, and that's fine. So that's that aspect of the journey. And I think the other thing for me at the moment is I've been thinking about what if I could put a band together. What would I like that to be? And other people have sort of said, I can really hear keyboards to that, and keyboards are great because they can add so much versatility to to the sound, and then other people have said some percussion, some strings. So I haven't really embarked upon that, but that'll be one of the next things to do is just play around with those other sounds. And then with that, it's that whole thing like we were saying before about, how do you go about finding those people? I mean, I know there's people out there, obviously, but that's a task as well. I don't know how that works, but I'll certainly be out there trying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How do you balance music with the rest of your life? Because as you're saying, you're a dad.
Yeah.
And have you got a day job aside of music as well?
Yeah, I do at the moment. I mean, my background is in teaching.
Yeah.
So as it turns out, I've got a bit more time because I've taken a bit of a career pause, which has been really good because it's given me some space. So at the moment, there's more space than there has been. So consequently, I'm here as well, and just being able to do more things, and it's becoming quite fruitful. When I was working more, full time, it was just, real snatches of time, and weren't really doing justice to what I wanted to do or to the actual creative endeavour either. And that's the thing. I've taken a bit of a step back, which has its own risks. But it's also afforded the opportunity to go a little bit deeper into things, and it's, not everybody can do that. I realise that, but at the same time, made a decision to take that step. So it's allowed things to develop a little bit more and come along, which is great.
I have a very similar journey. I don't have kids, but I certainly have taken that career pause or career reassessment, where I was running a small IT business for a long time, where I was out every day seeing multiple clients and fixing a whole business's worth of computer setups, and I found that eventually that just exhausted me and wore me out. And so when I wrapped up that business, I was left with all this time, and I was like, oh wow, well, because I was so used to. I don't know whether you had the same feeling too, but when you are in your career, right, you can almost feel this guilt if you're not dedicating your spare time towards making that career path, deeper or bigger or easier or something like that.
Yeah. I think, my response would be that when I'm, I suppose, in the career and your full-time work, it just takes up the majority of your time, really. Through the day, and so it just didn't allow for things. And so my experience has been, since taking that time out, it's been good. But it's also been one of the things that I've experienced is, right, okay, I've got today, because I've been doing some work in different schools around the place as teaching, relief teaching stuff. So that's been good and great to experience those schools. And so what will invariably work out in my week would be 2 or 3 days of that, and then a couple of days given to be able to develop some other creative stuff. And I will find one on those days where it's more open, either I just want to chill. Yeah. And then you feel that guilt that might come with that, or, oh no, I've got to do this. Or so then you might be pushing yourself. When I first started having this space, what I would do is, right, I'm there, I'm going, here we go. And I was probably forcing it a bit too much. And then I was getting frustrated because I think, well, nothing creative's coming. So I've learned just to get into a bit of a rhythm where I can't, you can turn up and be ready, but not to force it. So it's really interesting. And just to letting go and trusting that when that creative thing drops, then it'll be there and you can play with it. You just got to sort of wait.
It's a bit like waiting for rain sometimes, isn't it? Like if it's not there, it's just not going to be there.
Right.
But when it's there, you got to be ready for it.
Yeah, that's right. Turn up and sow the seeds, and hopefully it turns into something. So it is, but that's really interesting, that whole path, or that whole process, and and it is like that whole work thing, without getting too philosophical about it. we're not here for a long time either. And so, it does come down to that point of, making decisions around and making choices based upon what it is that you really, really want to do. Yeah.
I totally feel that, because I figure I'm about halfway through, whether I'm an optimist or a pessimist, right?
Yeah.
And, like every now and again I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'm never going to be that, 25-year-old on the cover of Rolling Stone, right? But I don't want to also be, that 60-year-old that never tried.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I'm just like, okay, here I am. It is what it is. And just all the opportunities that I'm being given, I'm trying to take as well.
Yep. And you don't know what is around the corner when you're willing to try something.
Yeah.
So, and there's a need for people to try a whole range of things rather than not try.
Yeah, exactly.
So, look, and music, that's one of the great things about being involved in music is if people get it, if it comes from the right place, people get it. And most importantly, I think, if it's something that you want to do, that whoever it is wants to do it, then that's the most important reason of all. And then it goes from there.
I think people definitely, if it's the old, it's the old cliched sales mantra of believing in your product, isn't it? Like if you are trying to, share your music with people, you've got to believe in it. You've got to really, it's got to be genuine, I find. As soon as you start doing some cynical, chasing of a trend, right, then it's sort of, is it fun anymore?
Yeah, that's right. And it probably only goes so far, and I know, look, I've just been enjoying the ride, learning a lot about songwriting, learning a lot about music and how it works, learning a lot about being creative, and just, growing from that. It's been good.
Do you find that you do you like watch songwriting classes on YouTube, or do you read books about it?
It's interesting. I can't profess to have read any books on it, although what I do find is I am fascinated by those documentaries that focus on, I can't remember the name of them now, but, the story behind Song X.
Oh, yeah.
Or the musician. So I find that fascinating. So when, was it Get Back, that Beatles?
Oh, yes.
Film that came out, Peter Jackson put together.
Yeah.
And I just could not wait for that thing to come out. And I sat down and watched the whole thing. And you had to be really into it to watch it, because it was like, it was long and slow, and, it wasn't sort of made to get you overly excited. It was just the story and stripped back. And I felt like it was almost like I was there in the room, which is fantastic. So I love the story behind the creation of songs. And so I've watched that, and anything else like it. And, we've got at home, we've got the recent set of Paul McCartney books on the lyrics of all the Beatles songs. So, and all the backstory to that is fascinating. So I do get into that big time. Yeah.
My dad's given me a copy of that Get Back documentary, and I haven't watched it yet, but he said one of the most fascinating things about it was that you would basically see them making these songs out of thin air, which, have ended up on, in millions, if not billions of ears, you know what I mean? So
and that's what I loved about it. You actually saw them, that's why I remember being in the room with them. It's like you're there the day that they were putting together, Get Back, or, I've Got a Feel, like all these iconic, classy songs, and you're just watching them do it. It was unbelievable. And you also sort of saw them falling apart as well. And you got an insight into who they were a little bit. So it was really, you'll enjoy it when you see it.
Oh, I've got the USB on top of my computer, so I've just got to plug it in and load up VLC or whatever it is that people watch.
Yeah.
I find with my own songwriting, right, like, and I don't know whether this is something that would resonate with you as well, is that sometimes it really just feels like I'm an antenna for something that's already out there. Whereas sometimes I'm sort of like going, okay, well, I've got the rhyming dictionary out and I've got to do this and this and this. And sometimes, particularly the third or second verse, like those are the ones where I've got to go, all right, how do I continue this story? But quite often there will be sentences that just appear out of nowhere. Do you find that's the same for you?
I've got a whole range of different sort of ways in which things haven't happened. So I would say a lot of the time I'm in the shower. And, maybe you relax and just, and I just find that different melodies will come. And if I think, oh, that's good, I'll race and grab the phone and record it. So that's one way. The other thing would be I might hear a really good line. So, for example, I had a chat with a guy who I'd only met this one time, and somehow he referenced a line another friend said, and the line was, "When the wave talks to the mountain."
Ah, yes.
That's a great line. Love that.
Why not make a song of it?
Yeah, and I did. And so, sometimes it's that. And then there's one of my songs where I was wanting to write about my sort of hope, I suppose, perspective on support of reconciliation, First Nations peoples. And a couple of lines just came, and it was about the whole sense of a movement. So sometimes I get inspired by a line that I hear, or a movement, or a feeling. Other times I'm just sitting around with the guitar and playing, and something sort of sounds interesting, and that goes from there. So it happens in a range of ways, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but whatever way, sometimes it's hard work getting the song out.
Yes, definitely.
Other times, it's like it's a lot easier, and the nice little nuances and shifts over the course of the song just work. Yeah. So it's different. It's not each time, but there's differences. Yeah.
It's a bit like a plant. Sometimes it's like a geranium and just springs up on its own, and other times it's like an orchid, and it's like, okay, well, here's two drops of pH adjust, whatever. Yeah.
It's an interesting process. And one thing I haven't done that I think would be, again, interesting is just to have that space when you're with another group of musicians in your band. And because so far it's just been, when I've written my own stuff, it's just been me. But to actually, I suppose that collaboration with other people would be interesting. Yeah.
I'm only just going down that journey myself.
Yeah, how's it going?
It's fantastic, actually, because I've just started. I've started doing some vocals for a band called Strawberry Lipstick. We're a punk band, and I had just gotten off the back of a duo project where we were making house music, right?
Yeah.
And that was very much studio based, very much like, we had all the, the charts laid out note for note, and it was all very precise and all very, not calculated, but certainly, polished, right? Whereas now with the punk band, it's kind of like, okay, there's four of us in the room. I will quite often have some lyrics that I've written down, on the train, or, workshop with the boys. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of like, wow, we've got this track done. Whereas, when it's myself as a duo or myself as a single producer, like I'll just obsess over every little detail. And so it's one of the real nice things. It's a bit like being in a paddle boat versus being in a sailboat, I guess. It's like, okay, cool. Well, look, I've got less control, but boy, it's a different feeling.
Yeah, and that's really, I think that's part of my, I suppose, almost hesitation to do it is, as you mentioned, that sense of control, because I think often when I'm writing with such a particular focus that I'm probably so consumed by that I'm just doing it myself. So it's another step then to share it and help let others be a part of it too.
That is a big part of it, isn't it? It's like, oh my goodness, I've poured my heart and soul into this, and now I've got to share it. And what if no one listens to it, or what if lots of people listen to it?
Yeah.
Have you got what's your sort of recording setup?
Really, really basic. I'd hardly say I have it. So I just, I've got just a Mac at home, and was it Logic? I don't really know how to use it, but I use it. Because you can use it like that, like you can just play around with it and things happen. I don't know half of what it can do, but I sort of can do some stuff with it. And the other recording that I have done is a shout out to a guy called Avi Misra, who is based in Melbourne. And he was at a workshop that he was leading and was talking about if anyone's out there is interested in, having me support them in their songwriting and collaborating. So I went up to Avi, and since then I would go to him for a bit of guitar stuff, but also just to do some songwriting, and recorded some stuff. Or he sort of, I suppose you'd say, produced it. And he's got a reasonably good setup in his space. So that was that's what happened. So I've got the capacity to record stuff, but it's really pretty basic. I don't necessarily know exactly what I'm doing. There's another area to develop in as well. But so I've just got a basic home setup. Yeah.
Lots of people I've talked to on the show have used Logic Pro, and it seems like it's one of those things. It's quick to learn, but a long time to master. By the sound of things, because you can delve really deep into it. It's got all these different instruments built into it, all these different effects, and people are putting out. It's everyone from the bedroom producer to like the top shelf. Like really respected producers out there, and that's one of the beauties of it. I think. Yeah. I think you're on the right track with it.
Yeah. Oh, look, and at the moment I haven't been really using it a lot. I've just been sitting down with the guitar, getting my phone out, and just capturing something and letting it be at that point for now. I've probably got, I reckon, in terms of songs that are pretty, when I say polished, they're not recorded, but I feel reasonably satisfied with. Say maybe 15 to 20.
Yeah.
And I think I'm at the stage at the moment where I'm happy just to be performing those, and not that I've done one gig. I'm about to do one in a couple of weeks, and then hopefully another one early next year. So I'm just at the stage, I'm really just starting out. And that's fine. And when it comes time to take the next step, I'll maybe dive into Logic Pro a little bit more. But I'm also waiting for put in for a grant along with lots of other musos, no doubt, out there in Melbourne. I think it's Creative Victoria, and I think they're announcing them in October. And that would, if I was successful, that'd be me in the studio recording an EP, but also funding to get some musicians in and form a band. So taking that next step towards a band and then performing with them down the track too. So that's on the horizon.
That's fantastic. There's lots of things happening.
Yeah. I mean, and my sense would be too, you realise, having just done that gig that I did, it's back in June now, so it's a while ago. It takes time, to get the rehearsal and then to get the promotion, to then, I got council funding, which is great, and then, to get to do the acquittal process and, all those sort of steps that I wouldn't know until I've done it. But it takes time. So I'm happy just to sort of wait till October, hopefully get some love there, use that, record at the back end of this year, and then February there's a gig out of the back of that funding as well. So it's a bit of a timeline there, and you don't know where that goes either. Hopefully get some more work, and hopefully a band and that sort of stuff. So you're just trying to create those foundations. Yeah.
Well, that's the dream, isn't it? I mean, if You know, if we were to put our corporate hats on and say, "What's your 5-year plan here, Luke?" It sounds like if you had your EP and if you had a couple of EPs and an album done, and you had the full band, and you were, gigging on a fairly regular basis, you'd be a pretty happy guy.
I would be a happy guy because I know how much I love it, and I think too when it's been that thing that, for me anyway, at the early stage where you enjoy it and there's something in it and you're just trying to shape it and seeing, if it starts to come together, then that's exciting and really enjoyable. And also, it's like I was saying, when you need to do something.
Oh,
and so,
when it hurts not to do it.
When it hurts not to do it, and so, if those things start to fall in place, then that's really significant because then it's falling in place in other ways as well. So that's the intention.
When it's right, you're walking down the street with your shoulders out, and your head held up high, and a smile on your face, and then all of a sudden, you're just wondering, why are all these strangers smiling at me? But it's like, I'm actually happy in my life. Whereas
that's right. Yeah.
There are times in your life where you sort of headphones in, hat down low, and sort of just avoiding everyone.
Yeah.
And people naturally give you that space because it looks like you need it. But when it's all going right, and the times it does, it's like, there's nothing better.
Yeah,
nothing
that's
better.
right. Yeah, exactly. So, and for me, I think too, what I like to write about are things that I think are really important. Important for me, but also, I'm writing to draw attention to things that I think need to be drawn attention to. And a lot of the time, what I'm doing is presenting my music, but I'm also crafting. This is the educator in me. So I'm not just necessarily performing the songs, but I'm giving space for people to reflect. I'm doing a little bit of yoga stuff at the moment, and so it might be something that comes into play throughout the gig as well in that mode. There might be a time to do a little bit of reflecting. This is all stuff that trying to find a pattern that you can put together. So, the music's the main thing, but it's, I suppose, an experience in different ways when you're coming to participate or to be a participant when I'm performing.
Yeah, very much so. It's part of the integrative process, isn't it, really?
Yeah. So, it's it's an experiment in lots of ways too, So it's and wanting to bring people in to experience being together in a different way. But as I said, writing about things that are important and bringing people together is important as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We'll wrap it up here. Thanks for bringing us along on your journey too,
Luke. Thank you, Ben, and thanks so much for the invitation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All the best.
Hey, just before we go though, if people want to hear more of your music, what's the best way for them to do it?
Yeah, look, I've got a SoundCloud account.
Yep.
And you might, I don't know, does it have a tag or something? I don't know how.
I saw Luke.Edwards8. Is that ringing a bell?
That is ringing a bell. In fact, it's either with the dot or without the dot, but it's definitely Luke Edwards8. There is also a website that I've got.
Yes. What's that one called? The View from?
View from Here.
Good.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that'll also lead you to some of my stuff as well. And then there's a gig coming up on the 14th of September.
Yep.
As part of Fuse Darebin Council having an event coming up to launch in spring. So nice to say we're coming into spring.
Yeah.
So that's on the 14th of September in Fairfield. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'll plug that on my... you haven't got Instagram or Facebook, have you?
I do.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Can you hook me up with that, or if you can't think of it at the top of your head?
Absolutely, I can hook you up with it. I can't think of it at the top of my head, right? So I'll have to send it your way. But yeah, appreciate if you get to promote it.
Too easy.
Good on you.
Cool.
Ben.
Thanks so much, Luke.
All right, mate. Take care.
Have a good one.
See ya.